Boom. We're back. We are back. What's going on, y'all? It is your man, Ike Jones, and I'm here with my man, Mike G. The War Rapport back for the 2020 season. What's up, man? How you feeling tonight?
I feel good. College football is back. We had an interesting NFL slate this past weekend, but I'm ready for some college football this weekend, definitely.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to what the college football season has to offer. Now, of course, they've been playing football before now. This isn't the first week of college football, but it's the first week of SEC play. So that's what really matters the most. Before we get into all that, make sure if you are watching us on YouTube right now that you are clicking that like and subscribe button, hit the bell, make sure you know when we're going to go live so you can hop in and talk to us about all things college football. We are as well the War Report on Instagram and Twitter. You can hit us up there. We actually have a TikTok this year, so we'll be dropping little snippets out there on TikTok. That is TW Rapport on TikTok. So y'all make sure if you're a TikTok person, follow us. I don't know how long TikTok's going to actually be a thing in the United States. That's a whole other conversation. Doesn't really matter. And then just for GP, in case y'all forgot, that was
just in case you forgot.
In case you forgot. Anyway, but we're back, man. We're back with another War Report, man. Let's get into it.
Well, I want to open up the broadcast tonight talking about the state of the SEC. This is the first week of SEC football. Our season starts this weekend and is slated to end December 19th, actually December 4th or 5th, culminating in the SEC championship game. But we open up the season with 8 teams ranked in the top 25 this year. So, I don't know, man. Like, I'm looking at this list of teams, and I'm wondering which ones are pretenders and which one are actually going to be in the hunt come the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a thing. There's definitely an SEC bias, and I'm not mad about it. When it comes to the rankings at the beginning of the season, people tend to believe that the SEC schools are going to be coming ready to play football. Couple that with the fact that there is no Pac-12 out there to share some of the rankings that exist in there. People didn't know if the Big Ten were even going to be a part of the season this year. So I know that there's a lot of reasons why so many SEC schools are in the top 25. But I do think that there's going to be a couple of teams out here that people anticipate having a good season, possibly just because they had one last year. That will not be the case. I don't know if we want to go early and start shouting out who we think are going to be pretenders, but I have a big one on my list that I think is ranked way too high.
Okay.
Way too high.
You know what? Let's just jump straight into that. For me, it's Florida. Like, I am not sure why we've got Florida sitting way up at number 5. To me, they've got question marks at quarterback. I know they had a decent year last year, but I'm not seeing Florida as a true number 5.
He's a preseason first team SEC at quarterback, Kyle Trask for Florida.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I see it. I just think, again, we're playing an all SEC schedule this year, right? As are some other conferences as well. I think the ACC is actually playing a few schools outside of their conference. I saw Clemson went up against the Citadel, like this past weekend. I don't know how they slid that one in there. To me, I just think with an all SEC schedule, it's conceivable that with no major upsets, that all 8 of these teams that are ranked in the top 25 could actually finish the season still ranked in the top 25.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a problematic statement. I think it's going to be difficult for that to be the case just because of the cannibalization that's going to happen with them playing against each other so much. But I do agree with you. Florida is too high. That's not the team that I was going to say, though.
Who's your overrated? Who's your overrated Ricky?
My overrated team for this year is last year's national champion LSU. I don't think LSU is going to have a good season this year. They lost too much on both offense and defense, and they lost their coordinator.
Yeah, listen. What was the guy's name? What was his name? The coordinator.
No,
he went to the Panthers.
Joe Brady.
Yeah, Joe Brady, right? Like, he was and their success last year, I think, is only validated by Joe Burrow's start to this NFL season with the Bengals, right?
Yeah.
Like, he looks good. For a rookie,
Yeah.
he looks good. And he's making plays, and he's making NFL-type veteran throws right now, so he was the real deal. And I don't know that you immediately replace that. And so, like, I just think, with LSU, they are still, you just got to remember, they still recruit well, right? So the talent is still there. They may have lost a lot, but the talent is still there at the end of the day. And
I don't disagree with that. I just don't know that they're ready to step in, and I think they're going to lose 3 games this year.
3 games? Whew. Listen, with an all SEC schedule, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. And we only get 1 bye week this year, so it will be, survival of the fittest. Auburn's bye week falls November 7th, right? And we are playing earlier in the year. We got Georgia in the middle of the season, don't we?
It's like
this
the
year,
second
right? Like,
game of the season, yeah.
Right, and that actually weighs in our favor because now we no longer have that Georgia-Bama gauntlet to finish the season. I think it's actually our favor to play that game in the middle, although it might end up being Georgia-LSU. I'm not sure that's that much better. But, with what it comes down to, I just feel like LSU still has a chance to be surprisingly good. We'll see what they do to replace the play calling of Joe Brady. I mean, that's something that we bemoan at Auburn a lot. Is Gus Malzahn and the play calling, and is he really going to turn this thing over to Chad Morris this year? LSU will be in a similar type situation where they leaned on him because he was a co-offensive coordinator, right? That have play calling duties. Him and Ensminger were sharing the job. LSU is a question mark to me. I think they'll be good. How good? Playing an only SEC schedule will be left to see. So I'm surprised to hear that from you, though, that LSU is your rated too high. I think in the top 10 is where they belong coming off the season that they had, with the way that they recruit, personally. I think
they're going to finish outside of the top 10 this year.
We had some comments people on the broadcast. Yeah. Can we get back to the comments?
Yeah, I flashed that up there. Well, first of all, Brian said, "What's up, Brian? Appreciate you tuning back in to the first."
What's up, Brian?
We got Eugene, who's a new commenter. I don't believe I remember him from last year, but if you were here, I apologize. But he thinks that Florida's going to get over the hump and beat Georgia and win the East this year. So he's disagreeing with your take on Florida being overrated, unless he feels like both Florida and Georgia are too highly ranked.
Yeah, listen, let me give you some background on Eugene. Eugene is this buster I know from high school that, went to Bama, and every year Eugene and I make a bet on the Iron Bowl. He punked out of the bet last year, right? But every year we make a bet, and we both had to pay up since we've been making this bet over the last 10 years. Right. So at the end of this broadcast, him and I will make our friendly wager on this year's Iron Bowl. I don't think anybody saw Auburn winning it last year, and we pulled it out. Mind you, Tua did get hurt, but that's the game you got to play on. I don't know if I agree with him on the Florida Georgia thing. We'll see as the season progresses. That's a game that we see, I think, in the middle of the season this year, and we'll know enough about both schools by that time. Nobody gets to open up with a cupcake this year. Auburn was scheduled to open up with North Carolina. That game is obviously off the schedule. And now we have Kentucky, which is a top 25 matchup to open up the season. So right. I think Kirby Smart is doing a great job with Georgia. When you look right now at the top 25 in recruiting, there are 9 SEC schools in the top 25 of recruiting. As it stands for the 2021 recruiting year. And, I don't think that it can really be understated, how well they've done it. But Kirby came from that Nick Saban system of player development. And, I know B hates it when I say that Nick Saban is a great game day coach and he's great at developing talent. But listen, he is. And they've taken that model, that process, and duplicated it at Georgia. So behind the traditional Georgia name, you've got the recruiting, and then you've got the player development. And no matter who their quarterback is, I expect them to get over I expect them to be in the conversation every year. You know, it'll come down to some bonehead play calls, whether they beat Bama or get over the hump or beat Florida, but it won't be about talent at Georgia, you know, for the foreseeable future. I think that Florida has a talent question, legit. I think that Florida legit has a talent question. You know, I'm not sure that Trask is going to be the next coming. So Eugene, thank you for that comment. I think we'll see. We'll see when it comes to Florida, but you know, I'm a little bit, you know, and then common sense there. Brian agrees with me. So you know,
I think he actually was agreeing with me about my
individual. No, what? I don't know about that.
Yeah,
so like I just.
He can clarify in the comments.
With Isaac there. Yeah, that's it's dangerous to agree with Isaac this early in the season. I'm put that out there. Really dangerous.
It's always a good idea to agree with me, actually.
All right. Well, I mean, so if you look at the rest of the SEC, right? Like again, 8 teams in the top 25 to start the season. You know, without any major upsets to any of the unranked teams, because when we look at it, who's the bottom of the SEC this year, right? At the way down at the bottom, I think we've got like Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a wild card in Mike Leach at Mississippi State this year. Yeah, he agrees with you. Okay, all right, whatever, trader. And so we have a wild card in Mississippi State with Mike Leach going down that year and taking his air raid offense to Mississippi State. So I'll be interested to see, you know, how that plays out.
Right.
But you know, they could be one of those teams that sneakily sneaks into the back half of the top 25 after a few games this season.
Right.
Arkansas, you know, I want them to be at the bottom. I dislike them strongly. I just, you know, they are where they deserve to be right now. You know, Vanderbilt.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Mike. He might have to drop out here. But anyway, if you guys can still hear me, give me a something in the comments. Let me know you can still hear me. Where he was going is just kind of like the schools from kind of top to bottom. Yeah, Mike's about to drop out. The schools from top to bottom that are having issues with just making sure that they are in a position to compete this year are going to be interesting. We're going to have to see kind of who is going to be the team that comes up out of nowhere. Let's see if we can bring Mike back in here. Yeah, you were saying that you feel like Vanderbilt, Arkansas were at the bottom of the league. Who else do you feel like are the ones that need to do some improvement to really be in a place? Ole Miss, I mean, I don't really know that he's gonna be in a place. Lane Kiffin is gonna be in a place where he's bringing Ole Miss anything significant in year one. So they've got a significant talent issue at Ole Miss. Like, who's gonna play quarterback for Ole Miss? Is it still gonna be the kid that was running around? You know, which he made us look foolish. But that kid that was running around all day playing quarterback, I don't even remember what his name is, the QB there.
Yeah, you know what? I think it is going to be that same kid. But you got to remember with Ole Miss, they're still suffering from a lot of recruiting sanctions, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if the talent gap is going to be there.
Right. Yeah. Hugh Freeze got them in a lot of trouble. So I expect them to be at the bottom of the SEC for quite a while, particularly playing in the West against all these juggernauts, right? Like, I'm not expecting to see it, but it is the SEC, right? So, like, you know, we could see an upset here or there, and the talent is always there, you know, if the coaching is. So, right. You know, the bottom half of our conference definitely has some potential, but playing an all SEC schedule this year, I'm not expecting that. Nobody has a lot of time to figure it out this year. So we're going to see how good everybody's preseason process was really early on this season, right? You know, you're jumping right into an SEC schedule, and you know, whether you are playing you're lucky enough to get Vanderbilt or Arkansas as your first game, left out of this conversation is that some people from the East are going to have to play more people from the West this year on this schedule. Now, it's not a round robin schedule. It's not a round robin because we have too many teams for everybody to play everybody. But, everybody's got to add an extra SEC West team to their schedule from that East side. And, that will create some parity there, definitely. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for sure. I think the SEC champion, this is going to be the year where there's no doubt whether or not they earned their way into the SEC championship. Nobody really has an easy road into that seat this year. So looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
Yeah, but definitely.
Cool. So speaking of that, we have SEC Week 1 coming up. So let's run through the games that we have coming up this week. Which game do you want to start with on this coming up weekend?
Man, let's start all the way at the bottom this weekend. Right? And I believe it's South Carolina.
And Tennessee.
Tennessee, right? Tennessee was an interesting story last year with all that they've been through, coaching changes, and players leaving the team, and there's a lot of things going on at Tennessee right now. Will Muschamp, is this year they have to show something, right?
No. Like I'll just say right off the top, no, he's a terrible head coach, and they're going to still underachieve this year again.
Right. Like, I mean, I'm still, as an Auburn fan, I'm still a little bit bitter that Will left Auburn when he did because he is a great defensive coordinator. But his teams traditionally, I think, right? Like, I think that his teams, struggle from an offensive standpoint. So it'll be really interesting to see, they go this year. And they think somebody, they put them at 16 to start the season, right? And you open up with South Carolina, so you can't afford a slip here. They need to win that game if they want to stay in the conversation. A loss to South Carolina, and again, these 8 teams that we have ranked in the top 25 after week 1, it could be 5 or 6 really quickly.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't think we have any room for error.
I mean, I think Tennessee's actually going to be decent this year. They might be a surprise team in the East. I don't know how many games they're going to win. I have to go look at the schedule and kind of break it down. But I do think that Tennessee is going to actually be in the hunt this year for the SEC East. I am too not a firm believer in Florida's ability to win the East. I'm not going to count them out because they've had a traditionally pretty decent defense, and that's always going to place you in a position to be able to win games. Kyle Trask is not that bad, but we'll get to Florida later. But as far as Tennessee, this should be, in my opinion, this should be a gimme win for Tennessee. I'm going to pick Tennessee in this game.
Yeah, I'm with the balls in this one too. I wouldn't, but I will put the caveat out there that I won't be surprised if South Carolina wins this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we haven't been able to see anything from any of these teams, it won't necessarily be a shock for anybody to lose. But, from what I know of those two teams, of those coaches and the trajectory that those programs are going in, I'm picking Tennessee.
Yeah, I just think that Will Muschamp always wins a game every year that he's not supposed to, right? Like,
for sure. Now, that's a factual thing.
Yeah, he's going to win one. Now I'm not sure this is going to be the biggest win of the year for him. Beating an average Tennessee squad, but don't let the ranking by the name fool you. I don't expect much of Tennessee this year. They do have the advantage of playing in the East, right? And I'm not sure who their extra cross-divisional rival is this year. But unless it's Arkansas, right? Like, I'm not expecting much from them.
Let's take a look here. Tennessee plays. Who is their extra one? Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. So yeah, I don't expect much from them. Jimbo Fisher's going to have his team ready. Definitely.
Word. All right. Next game we've got here. You want to go Vandy versus number 10 Texas A&M.
Perfect lead in. Right. So Texas A&M, right? Like, we got Jimbo Fisher jumped to the SEC. He abandoned Florida State. He waved the white flag. I mean, he did get them in Natty, and against us of all teams, right? And now he's out, right? And he's at Texas A&M. And I thought that they showed great. They took great strides last year. They do play in the West, so it was tough. So again, you had the eventual national champion plus at least 3 of the top 10 teams on your schedule within the division at some point, right? And this, it can't be understated how tough the West is, right? Like this is like the the extra division of the NFL. It feels like some years with how tough these teams are. And Vandy, I think, is a good opening game for them. I expect Texas A&M to take this game easily. If they don't, again, you'll see a meteoric drop from number 10 all the way into the high teens, low 20s, right? Like, but I don't expect that. I think that they'll handle this game fairly easily.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you again. I feel like this should be a gimme win for Texas A&M. I just haven't seen anything from Vanderbilt's program that lets me believe that they have done anything significant that will get them back into the win column. Week 1 against the Texas A&M team that hasn't been great, but hasn't been terrible in the last couple of years. They've got a senior quarterback, and so I anticipate them getting the W here.
Yeah, quarterback play is what it'll come down to for them, right? Like, their quarterback was erratic at times last year, and if he can take the next step, they'll be competitive in a lot of ball games this year.
For sure. All right, next up on the schedule, we have University of Alabama versus Missouri. Again, I don't know that we're going to have very much debate about this game as to what direction it's going to go. Bama's Bama. Missouri is unfortunately Missouri. They have been pretty tragic over the last couple of years, which is crazy because they came into traditionally Missouri starts strong in their seasons. I think they had a stumble early last year. Outside of that, they have decent going into like week 5 or 6. Missouri usually has either undefeated or just one loss. And then other than the first 2 years they were in the SEC, they've collapsed on the back half of the season. This is going to be an early whooping that they're going to get. I just don't think that. I don't think that Missouri has enough to keep up with Bama at all. Mac Jones is coming back as their starter this year. He looked good in the game against us. He looked good in their bowl game. I think he's going to be a good asset for them. They're always going to have a good defense. Like I think their defense is a year more mature this year, so they're more improved. They haven't really lost anything from a coaching staff perspective. They still have talent at wideout. So yeah, Missouri, good luck. That's all I can say.
Yeah, listen, I want to be clear about this next statement. This game will be an epic beatdown of epic proportions. Missouri has zero chance. Nick Saban's going to have his team ready. Just hearing him talk about preparation, why they needed football during this, the COVID when things shut down, told me like, he's going to have his team ready. Like, Alabama wasn't sitting on their hands this offseason. They had a monster. They just missed the playoffs last year, rightfully so. I don't think they deserved to make the playoffs with the 4 teams that made it. The best team won the championship last year, definitely. And the best 2 teams played in that game. So Bama wasn't in that conversation. But listen, every year, their top 5 team, because of some of the same things I said earlier about Georgia, right? It's recruiting and it's player development, and they do those 2 things better than anybody in college football currently. Now, does that mean they're unbeatable? No, but they are not beatable by Missouri. So, this will be. If Bama scores less than 49 points in this game, I'd be shocked. All right, I think it's over by halftime. And Missouri is looking for moral victories in the locker room at halftime. Like, hey guys, we scored a field goal. Right? But yeah, no contest here. Alabama wins big.
Not much to talk about on that game. Next game on the schedule, again, I don't know that there's going to be much debate as to who is going to win this game. We've got Georgia at Arkansas. Arkansas, they're going to have a decent running attack again this year. Their defense has been better of late. I just don't know that they've done enough to close the gap against Georgia to even make this a competitive game. Like, let's forget them beating them. I'm talking about competitive game. I think Georgia wins this one running away as well.
Yeah, listen, there are a few teams. There are a few teams that I really dislike in the SEC. Arkansas is one of them. After they hired Brett Bielema as their coach, they got really unlikable after that. Like, holy crap, I hated that guy, right? So my hate for them went to another level. But at the end of the day, you're right. They're outmatched in this game. Again, UGA is the top tier. They're top tier of the SEC right now. And I know that Eugene thinks Florida's going to get over the hump and beat them and whatever nonsense he was talking a few minutes ago. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, they're a much better team. Arkansas doesn't have the horses to stay in this game. And particularly for our first game of the season, where preparation is going to matter. I just think Kirby Smart is in that upper echelon of coaches that's, prepared his team for this, right? Like, shortened camps. They actually pushed the SEC season back, which gave them even more preparation time for the season. So, no contest here, UGA big.
Yep, no disagreement there. Next game, Mississippi State at number 6, LSU. Even though I made this statement earlier that I feel like LSU is going to lose 3 games this season, this is not one of them that I am picking them to lose. I am still picking LSU to win this game. This is actually more so a statement about Mississippi State, though, than it is about LSU. Not that I feel like Mississippi State is going to be a terrible team this year. They're going to be improved just because of the fact that they have better coaching. I just think it's too early in that process for them to see a rapid turnaround in game 1 to be competitive against LSU. I don't think LSU they're not going to be the offensive juggernaut they were last year. They don't have the same coaching in place. Emsminger is still there, but I think Joe Brady was really the mastermind around the preparation that they had for teams when they came into there as far as the offensive game plans. Now, who was calling the plays on a play-to-play basis, that's going to be seen. We're going to see how good the play calling is, but you don't have the same guy calling the signals on the field. So I think they lose too much. Jamar Chase is not coming back for this season, so they're going to lose him at wide receiver. They lost Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver. They lost Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even though that backup running back that they had looked amazing when he came in short spans last year. But I just don't think that LSU is going to lose this game to Mississippi State. I'm picking LSU.
I'm picking LSU as well, too. They officially named the starting quarterback. I saw it today, right? The heir apparent. I don't even think that he's earned us being able to even say his name on this broadcast. So, question mark LSU quarterback, right? But he's got big shoes to fill. And, we'll learn something about Ed Orgeron as a coach this year, truly. When Les Miles took over for Nick Saban at LSU, and he won that championship in 2007, I believe it was, right? A lot of what got said about him was you won with Nick Saban's
guys. Yeah.
Nick Saban's guys, right? And I really did feel like that was Les Miles' championship. He did get back to a championship game after that. So kudos to him. It says something about how he ran that program. And I think we're going to learn the same thing about Ed Orgeron this year, right? Like, he came in, he kind of caught lightning in the bottle with Joe Burrow, right? Like, holy crap. Credit to them for getting the most out of him, because I think it can't be understated. Like, I think that a lot of schools have a Joe Burrow type talent on their team, and because the coaches misidentify talent, that guy never sees the field.
Right. Because he wouldn't have sniffed the field at Ohio State, and he'd have just kind of meandered his way through his college career. I don't know that Joe Burrow, minus an injury, ever sees the field if he doesn't transfer. And depending on where he transfers determines like how successful he is. Like you said, lightning in a bottle is the exact way I would describe that.
Yeah, listen, at these big schools, there are only so many starting spots. And so, to be the quarterback at Alabama, or at Georgia, you got to get a little lucky. Look what happened to Georgia. They had a couple of quarterbacks transfer out, right? One went to Washington, Eason, right? Like, and Fields went to Ohio State, right? And they were both killing it. Right. So this was too much talent and not enough places for everybody to play. So, Joe Burrow was a surprise. The credit to them for recognizing his talent. And, the fact that he won the job was amazing, because he was technically an Ohio State reject. And I just wonder, if they have that same type of talent, because it's not like Joe Burrow was some amazing athlete, right?
Right.
He, was okay in 2018, and in 2019, he took the next step and probably was the most accurate quarterback we've seen in college football history, right? And like I said, watching him for the first 2 weeks in the NFL, clearly his talent is for real. And if they can produce even a smidgen of that this season, I think they have a chance to be in the conversation for SEC West champions, right? Like they've got the talent. Talent is there. If experience is the only thing holding them back, then it comes down to coaching at that point, right? And there is a big question mark with Joe Brady gone. So LSU big over MSU. I'm excited to see what we're going to see in lieu of Joe Burrow moving on, right? Like it's going to be a really interesting storyline.
Definitely going to be interesting to see what that offense looks like. Like I said, they lost a ton of talent on that side of the ball. So I'm not actually picking LSU big in this game. What are we considering big? 2 touchdowns or more?
Yeah, like Mike Leach might have some tricks up his sleeve. And, he's got that first year kind of like what I'll call grace.
Unexpected. Like what is it like? What are you going to expect from this team? Like you have no idea. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not picking them big though. I'm not picking LSU big. I am picking them to win, but I didn't look at the spread. We don't normally do spreads on here to see if people are going to cover and stuff like that. We might introduce that later this year if you guys want to hear us talk some more about like sports betting type stuff. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But again, I do pick LSU to win this game. I think they're going to take a couple of games before they get warmed up and really start putting it on teams though. So we'll see.
Agreed.
All right. Next game we have here, and hold on, I don't want to skip past the comments that we've been getting here. Let me just kind of go back here. First and foremost, my man Mike Hicks is in the comments. Appreciate you coming back for another season.
Hey,
Wondering when we're get back started. We are back. Missouri apparently was struggling with some COVID issues on their squad and wondering if that's going to be an impact on their team. They could have completely no COVID issues and they would still lose big in that game. Justin Fields was a comment earlier about the other quarterback coming out of Georgia, and then he's the back. Again, I'm assuming this is a comment about the LSU quarterback being a highly recruited two-sport athlete who's going to be coming in to fill in. So we'll see kind of what that means for that team going into this season and how they adapt their offense to a new style quarterback with new talent around him. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
That goes back to my comment about recruiting, though. Like I said, I mean, there's no lack of talent there ever.
Yeah, not doubting the talent. I'm doubting their ability to pull it together with offseason being what it is. I think the schools that have the most cohesion coming back are going to have an advantage early. When you're talking about teams like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, that have new coaches that are trying to install new things, that's going to be significantly hindering those teams from getting off to a quick start because they have to figure out who their personnel are. How do we best deploy these people to do the types of things we want them to do? And those people have to respond to that new system. When you look at teams like LSU and Georgia to some extent, that are going to have turnovers in talent, where it's like the guys that they have coming back aren't necessarily going to be. And I think LSU, in addition to having Joe Brady not coming back, that's where you're going to see some lack of chemistry. These are new people trying to figure each other out. So that I think they might get caught slipping early in the season. I'm not saying LSU is going to be a bad team. I just don't like, number one, they're not going to be as good as they were last year. Like, how can you replace what they had last year? But are they still going to be a decent team? Yeah, absolutely. I just don't know that they are number 6 in the country good. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Florida versus Ole Miss. So Florida is your team that you have said is not going to finish as well as they are ranked. Are you going to pick them for an upset week 1?
Hell no. Listen, this will be they're my I'm not sure about if they're a number 5 team in the country. And Eugene, you started this, so I'm doing this for you, right? Eugene seems to think that Florida has some sort of chance over Georgia this year. Like I really don't see it. This is a good time to insert a thought about what COVID policies are going to be this year and how that's going to affect these games, right? So Florida, Georgia, always a big game every year. And the SEC has kind of delegated down the stadium policies to the member institutions. And what does that look like? Well, most schools have adopted a policy where they are only going to allow, in concordance with local, ordinances, of course, right? About 20 to 25% of the fans into the stadium on game day. Right now, we've seen this in the NFL. Right, what that's going to equate to at Auburn is around about 17,000 people get a ticket to the game. Of that 17,000 people, they have to allocate at least 500 tickets to the visiting team on the lower level. So I'm not sure. I mean, that's less than an 8A, so I'm not sure how much of an advantage teams are going to have this year on the road or at home, right? Like, without the hometown crowd behind you, it's 17,000 people and nobody else, right? Like that much of an advantage. Essentially, you're talking about a basketball crowd in a football stadium is what you're looking at.
And can we talk about how horrible the artificial noise has been in the NFL? It's terrible.
Like, yeah. I mean, listen, when you're watching it on TV, I just don't think that it's going to be. I just don't think that it's going to be. I don't think home field is going to be a huge advantage this year. Right? Like, I mean, maybe because the other team has to travel, but in terms of game day experience, this. If we're going to see upsets, this might be one of the reasons why, right? Because without home field advantage, it comes strictly down to coaching and talent. There's no 12th man. Like, you just have to show up and execute better than the team across from you. Now, will Ole Miss do that against Florida? No, they're not going to do that. They're awful, and they're going to be awful for a few years, and they have zero shot in this game. But is Florida going to win this convincingly? I think that the talent gap is so big in this game that you might actually see Florida win a sloppy game by 3 touchdowns. Right? We'll see what Trask does. We'll see, what Dan Mullen, has, in his team. He's not my favorite coach in the SEC. I think he's an average offensive mind, honestly. But we'll see what he has in store. I picked Florida by 3 touchdowns, but in a sloppy game.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to pick an upset in this game. I don't know that I'm picking. Well, I don't think we've picked anybody to get upset week 1 according to how the standings are. So it's going to be a very. I think I'm going to go super chalk week 1 in the SEC. But yeah, I don't see Ole Miss being able to do anything. All right, now we are to the game that matters the most for at least my tastes, and that is Kentucky.
Listen, don't sell it short. Don't sell it short. This is the marquee matchup of the weekend in college football, right?
Absolutely.
Number 23 Kentucky versus number 8 Auburn. And there are only 3 other top 25 matchups, and they're all very underwhelming. So this is the game that everybody's going to be watching this season. This is definitely the game of the week in the SEC. Right, and the storyline here, we've got a few storylines. The storyline here, primarily for Auburn, is has Bo Nix taken the next step from his freshman season? Right, I feel like a lot of Auburn fans last year were frustrated that we weren't better than we were, but we essentially defaulted to this Bo Nix is a true freshman stuff, which I don't really believe in the SEC, honestly, right? Like, I believe if you're starting, you should be ready to play and you should be ready to win in our conference. We've seen a lot of schools. We've seen Bama do it. We've seen Georgia do it. We've seen a lot of schools have big-time success with freshman QBs. So I don't think that last season was a failure for Auburn, but this season is going to say a lot about whether Bo Nix finishes his career at Auburn or somewhere else.
No, I don't think that's a wild statement to make. I think there's a lot of talent behind him, and if he does not show improve this year, he might be looking to hit the transfer portal just because there's going to be too much pressure on somebody else to step in and actually play well at quarterback. Because I don't think, like, we talked about this ad nauseum last year about how great a defense we wasted last year. And we're, I just don't anticipate our defense being that level of great this year. I think we're still going to be very good on defense, but we're not going to be the last year's defense. You just simply cannot replace the people who we lost on the defensive side of the ball. And so with that being said, I think we're going to struggle early defensively. We're going to look sloppy early defensively against Kentucky. If that quarterback is, decent accuracy, it's going to look bad early. But I do feel as if as that game wears on, we're actually going to be able to put up enough points to keep us in a position to win this game.
Yeah, listen,
I probably would never say for our team last year.
Secondary storyline here. Our backup from last year went to Kentucky.
For sure.
Right. Joey Gatewood is at Kentucky, and I know they were trying to get a waiver for him to be eligible immediately. The last I checked, they're still waiting on an answer from the NCAA on that matter. But I don't think that Gatewood got a fair shake versus Bo Nix last year. Quite honestly, I don't think he got a fair shake. And I thought they restricted him quite a bit, and they really bet the farm on Bo Nix is what they did. And, if you're an Auburn fan and you're watching this, we have been ruining quarterbacks for about 10 years. 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, any star, right? Like, we have not produced a quarterback. Jarrett Stidham was a really good quarterback, right? But I don't think we can claim any credit for his development. He grew up at Baylor, sat out a year, came to Auburn. He already was what he was when he got to us, and he actually regressed in his second year at Auburn, right? So, point me to a quarterback that actually took a step in their second year at Auburn. Even in good years with Nick Marshall, right? Like, arguably Nick Marshall regressed in his second year at Auburn because our team did not get better, right? And I don't have a whole lot of faith in this coaching staff's ability to develop at the QB position, right? Gus Malzahn traditionally has had some very rigid policies surrounding his quarterbacks, about letting them work with outside QB coaches, and then he about faced on that a couple of years ago, but he just hasn't got it done. And, I hope that Bo Nix does well. Watching his freshman campaign as a fan was very, very frustrating because of how good our defense was.
Right.
And to put this in context for you, LSU's offense scored more points than any other team in college football history last year, and we gave them the toughest game they have all year, right? Like, let's be real. That same offense put up almost 50 points on Bama, right? Bama did some crazy stuff at the end.
Fair, we almost put up 50 points on Bama, though, so,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, right, we held that offense to not a lot of points, right? Like, and they gave up a bunch of points, right? So, I'm just saying, like, this Auburn team was good last year, and because our quarterback play has been subpar, we have lost some really good wide receiver recruits as well too. And I'm going to be looking at all eyes are going to be on this passing game. Look, Whitlow's gone. He had some issues, and I don't want to get all into that tonight, but like, Whitlow is gone, and I'm not too sad about that because, quite honestly, I thought he was an average running back that just couldn't hold on to the ball. I think his fumble problems made him average, right? He played frustrating at times, and we haven't had really issues finding running back, so I expect the next man up, and that this will come down to Bo Nix in the passing game, right? The knock on Gus Malzahn's offense has been, does this system need a dynamic athlete at quarterback to be successful? Because that's truly the only time we've seen it exceptional, right? And if you're watching, I don't know if we're getting comments, if anybody's still watching this, like, I'm interested to hear what everybody thinks about, Gus and this offense, but it's just really what's going to boil down to. You made a point about our defense. I actually think our defense will be ready to play, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not going to be ready. I'm just talking about like things that you expect to see from people who are getting their first time starts are things like coverage busts, right? Like,
right.
did they rotate into the correct place in the coverage? The other thing that you're not going to have is a stellar defensive line that is you've got two guys essentially that are unblockable on every play, right? So like you have to account for them every single time, which means they need to leave extra people in for protection, which means less people out in there to actually be out in a formation to it's just going to be a different situation on defense this year. And I have faith and confidence in our defensive staff's ability to get us ready to play, which is why I'm not saying Kentucky's going to win this game. But what I am concerned about is whether or not we're going to look sloppy defensively early and they're going to sneak some points in there when they shouldn't. And Chad Morris, we're going to see whether or not he makes an actual impact on, is it still a Gus-led offense, or is this truly going to be a Chad Morris offense? Like, that's what we need to see week one. Is there a change in the way that we're calling plays? Is there a change in the way that we're preparing for stuff? And if that's the case, and how we're making play calls in critical positions, if that stuff starts to happen, then we're going to have a different conversation about whether Auburn can really make a run at the SEC this year. Because if the defense performs 80% of what they did last year and the offense makes steps in the right direction, you've got a chance to win some of those games that we should have won last year, the Floridas and the LSUs of the year. We got a chance to win those games this year, but we'll see.
Right.
That's yet to be seen.
Yeah, I to your point about the defense and Chad Morris and what's going to be happening on offense, I just think that a lot of their execution of sloppy plays that you're talking about we might see on defense is going to come down to what kind of position this offense puts this defense in this year. If we do what we did last year, they have no chance.
Yeah, and
Right.
That's why I said early in the game, I do think that we'll get a handle on it and we'll figure it out. And I think even the offense is going to start clicking later on in the game. I think it's hard to prepare too. Like, it's going to be really difficult to prepare for Auburn week one, just because you have literally no idea. You can go look at old tapes of Chad Morris. You can even go look at Arkansas tapes. It's not going to be the same players. I don't think the scheme is going to be the same. So it's going to be difficult to really predict how Auburn is going to play next year, starting out early.
Yeah, listen, if I'm Kentucky and I'm game planning, I'm getting after Bo Nix, period.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to put a ton of pressure on him and make him earn it.
I'm stacking the box. I'm not going to let you beat me run the ball. And I'm going to make you, based on what I saw on tape last year, I'm going to make you show me that Bo Nix can beat me with his arm, period. Right? So I'm putting 8 in the box and I'm coming after you every single play, and we'll see how that goes. Kentucky, they can prove a lot in this game if they pull it out, right? They can prove a lot, technically on the road. I don't think that means a lot this year, being on the road or at home, as I said. But, this really, our season rests on Bo Nix, man. Like, we saw, with a championship caliber defense, a decent running game, we saw what this team could do last year. And the answer to that is be average. So to be more than that, we need the offense to be more than what it is, which means we need Bo Nix to be more than what he was last year. So if they haven't taken a step and lost in this discussion, we have not talked about Auburn's offensive line.
Right.
Right. This is going to be a patchwork offensive. This is going to be a brand new offensive line. So, how they protect Bo Nix, is he running for his life? Because I'll give him some reprieve if he's running for his life every play.
Can the offensive line be much worse than they were last year, though? They weren't that great last year.
Yeah, by Auburn standards, they were well below average, right? Like, we expect more out of our offensive line year in, year out, right? But I think really what it boils down to is this scheme going to account for the talent that we have and put them in the best position to win, right? Like, if our O-line is not that great, I expect to see 3-step drops. I expect them to run plays. One of the things that we noted last year was how little we threw the ball over the middle of the field, right? Every game, we're like, do we call slants or hooks or, Like, what's going on with this offense that it's like either a bomb all the way down the sideline or a screen behind the line of scrimmage? That was the entirety of our passing game last year. And every once in a while they would call a slant and it would work. And we were like, why don't they do that more? I don't understand. Right. So, are they going to be able to put Bo in a position where he can get the ball out of his hands quickly if this offensive line is trash? Because sometimes when you don't have a great offensive line, your short passing game is like your running game.
Right.
And this offense is supposed to be adaptable for that. I mean, that's what they've been touting, and I want to see it this year, right? I mean, we gave Gus a bag, right? Like, we gave him a whole bag of cash, almost $50 million. And, listen, I need to see, $25 million worth of offense next year.
Right.
We got $25 million worth of defense. We need the offense to carry their weight this year. I'm pulling for Bo, but my faith is less in this coaching staff. I saw that Mike had a comment up a second ago about Bo taking the next step with Chad Morris. And again, Mike, I want to believe that, but can Gus Malzahn get out of his own way? Right? Like, can he get out of his own way and let his offensive coaches do the job, we kind of, when he took back over the play calling, right, like we kind of had a resurgence and everybody was just like, oh, it was a mistake for him to turn it over in the first place and blah, blah, blah. And we just haven't seen anything sustained from that. So this year, I really hope that he can, let Steele handle this defense. He deserves to be the highest defensive coordinator in college football, if you ask me, right, the highest paid defensive coordinator. And then on offense, we just have to figure something out, right? This passing game has to go, right? And every time Bo Nix drops back last year, I held my breath because I didn't know what was going to come of it.
Yeah, I think, what I expect to see is a lot of Chad Morris early in the year. And if it's not successful, that's when you're going to see Gus get antsy, because that's what happened with Chip Lindsey when he first came in. When Chip Lindsey was first installed as the offensive coordinator, Gus was letting him do his thing for the first couple of weeks, and it didn't look great. It was just okay. And then, he started to feel that hot seat, and he was like, look, I've got to come in here and I've got to do my thing. And he probably was chirping way too much in his ear and trying to give suggestions. And then Chip was just like, hey, if you're going to do all this, just call the plays yourself, right? Like I'll get the game plan prep for you and I'll do that. And you call the plays. And it took a drastic downturn after a small uptick initially. And we're like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. And then it went to hell pretty quickly.
Agreed. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, what's your prediction for this game? What do you have? What's the score? This is the only game we need to give a score on.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tough game for me to score just because I'm not as familiar with what Kentucky's bringing to the table. They did lose some offensive talent on their end as far as their running back position. So I'm going to give Kentucky 13 points, and I am going to say Auburn's going to score 27.
Okay. I have Auburn 17-10.
17-10.
Yeah, and I'm going to be clear here. I was very, very close yesterday to calling an upset, calling us to lose this game.
I've seen a couple people call this as the upset pick this week.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. My homerdom won't let me pick Auburn to lose, but I need to go on record as saying that I have not a whole lot of confidence in this week one pick until I see, if this coaching staff has learned anything, from, how, did we do what we needed to do on the offensive line? And has Bo Nix taken the next step in his QB development journey, right? If he hasn't, it's going to be a long season.
For sure.
Culminated and go as buyout.
Yeah.
Right. So what Mike is saying about Chad Morris and Bo Nix at this point, based on history, I just think that's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it's wishful thinking, and that's exactly what I'm wishing. That's really what I'm basing my pick off of. Is I am wishing that the offense is going to get it figured out, and we're going to pull away late by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the bowl game didn't give me a whole lot of hope for this one.
I don't want to judge anything not Chad Morris related when it comes to this offense. I don't personally want to. I want it to be. I want to have faith in the fact that when he said he's going to let Chad do his thing, he's going to actually let him do his thing. We're going to see a completely different scheme as to, specifically in the pass game, of how they are choosing to attack defenses with short passes, with just inventive ways to get these athletes, which we have some stellar athletes on the outside. We've talked a lot about Seth Williams' ability at the 50-50 ball. He's one of the best in the SEC, if not in the country, at 50-50 balls. We've got a ton of speed, of course, as we always do. We have the fastest man in college football coming back.
We do.
Fully healthy. I've heard some great things about these freshman receivers that we have on the outside, about the way that they compete. Shedrick Jackson's supposed to be one of the best blocking wide receivers. He's got decent hands. I haven't seen him yet in the game where he's actually made big catches, but I've heard good things about his ability to block as a receiver. So that puts us in a position where we can be able to do some things running the ball and breaking some big runs down the field. We've got some tight ends with a ton of talent this year, and hopefully we actually get to see them deployed into the offense a little bit. So it does definitely come back down to, like you said, is this offensive line going to be able to protect? And if they can't protect for long periods of time, to me, the biggest thing that we're going to have to see is 1st and 2nd down. Are we able to put ourselves in 3rd and manageable? Because if we're making early mistakes where we're fumbling the ball out of the, freaking snap, or we've got false starts, or we have stupid negative plays on 1st or 2nd down, then we're going to see ourselves in a world of trouble. Just be ahead of the chains. Make sure we can continue to get quick passes out to our athletes, let them do their thing in space, and not have the offense 3 and out consistently early and put ourselves. If this game is tight going into the 4th quarter, it's going to be a problem. I think we need to have a lead going into halftime that's about 10 points. Kentucky might get an early 3rd quarter score to make it look like, it's manageable, and then we pull away with a couple of scores. That's what I'm hoping to see, is kind of a low scoring game early. We go into the halftime with a 10-3 lead, 10-13 lead, right? Like I'm hoping it's somewhere in that thing where the defense keeps them out of the end zone 3-6 points, right? And then we are in the teens. And then second half, we put a couple of touchdowns on the board and pull away late. That's what I'm hoping to see. Hoping the defense comes out here and produces. The offense just doesn't make any bonehead situations in the first half, and we pull away late.
Yeah, lots of 3rd and 9s and third, like to your point about getting behind the chains on 1st and 2nd down, right? Like, if we see too much of that, like I haven't seen a whole lot. I mean, you don't want any quarterback to consistently be in that position, right? So that's not specific to Bo Nix.
For sure.
But particularly with him.
I think it's particularly with our offensive line. Like that's not so much an indictment on Bo Nix to me. That's an indictment on, I don't know that this offensive line can pass protect long enough for us to have to get 9-10 yard routes to develop down the field, and then Bo Nix being in a position where he has to run for his life and make a good decision on 3rd down and long. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm 27-17 Auburn, Mike. All right, Brian, if you're still watching, we want to see your prediction too. I've got Auburn 17-10. I just don't know about this offense. I think Kentucky defensively is going to be ready to some extent. Home field advantage, as I stated before, I think doesn't exist in this game.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Yeah, not with 17,000 fans, right? So they'll just need to go out and execute. They will be at their home field, so it should create a feeling of being more comfortable. Eugene, I'm right in there with Eugene at 28-20. I think that's more likely.
You guys' margin of victory is a touchdown. I'm at a 2 touchdown. I'm 13-14 points is really where I'm hoping that margin is going to be. Mike was at a 10-point margin of victory. The number of I just honestly believe that if we score in the high 20s, that means we're not giving up a ton of points either. Like I just don't foresee us scoring that many points and giving up that many points. So that's why my score was in the range that it was. I just feel like the defense is going to keep them at bay if we're scoring in the high 20s.
Yeah, I mean, if Bo Nix doesn't turn the ball over, then you might be right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of maybes and mights out here.
Yeah, if he gives them a short field, right, because we're doing boneheaded stuff, then which I could easily see happening. But ultimately our defense, again, I think will keep us in it and keep them out and force them to kick field goals, or force 3 and outs. So, are they going to be on the field the whole game, like what happened to them last year when they were all world? I mean, with Derek Brown and what was the other cat? Montravius Adams, right? These guys. That was another.
Yeah, that was another.
Monte is in the league, but the other guy that was playing aside from him, right? Like, I just think with the talent that we lost and the amount of points that they gave up because they literally played, they were on the field so much of the game. That's just got to change this year. Steele needs some help from Gus Malzahn on offense, period. Right? That's the bottom line. Steele needs help from this offense where they don't go out and they don't have Marlon Davidson, right? Yeah, they don't get, 3 straight.
Have you heard them trying to hype up Big Cat? Big Cat is supposed to be like this breakout player this year.
Well, they're talking about him like, listen, he flashed potential. But, we'll see. I like what Travis Williams is doing with these linebackers, man. Like, listen, he can coach. Travis Williams can coach linebackers.
Yeah. I'm not worried about when we were there. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about – so my thing with Big Cat, and you know what, we're getting close to the end of the show, I know, but my thing with Big Cat is it's so inconsistent. Like, I want to see him not just flash a really great play here and there. I want him to consistently dominate. And I just haven't seen, and you can chalk that up to the rotation that's happening and all this other stuff. He was in there a lot of snaps last season for him to have so few plays where it looked like Big Cat was really winning consistently. I want to see him win I'm not a stats guy. Like, I'm not a guy who looks at a stat line and says, oh, look how many tackles he had. I want to see, are you disrupting plays? Are you in the quarterback's face consistently? I did not see enough of that in Big Cat in these first couple of seasons of him being on that defensive line. So we'll see. I know he's got the experience. He has the athleticism. Is he going to be able to consistently show up week in and week out and cause havoc along that defensive line? Now, Truesdale is the guy who I'm really looking forward to seeing this year be a complete game wrecker. I think Truesdale is going to be a game wrecker for us on that defensive line. He's going to be a guy that's going to frequently flash on the screen of disrupting things, clogging up the middle, and I think that those linebackers, like you said, are going to have a lot of free range to play because of guys like him up front that are just going to make it hard to block.
Listen, we're gonna need it to compete with Bama this year. So in that vein, I got to make my yearly bet with Eugene. Eugene, thank you for tuning into the War Rapport this week. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Eugene and I make a bet every year on who's going to win the Iron Bowl. It's just a straight up, right? Like this year, listen, my forecast on Auburn was not great. I understand. But I think we get up for the Iron Bowl. To your point about Mac Jones, right? Like, I thought he did a great job, even though they lost the Iron Bowl. I thought he did a great job versus Auburn in that game. I thought he showed a lot of resolve to come back after he threw the pick six. And I just thought that he did a phenomenal job keeping his poise in that game in light of being thrown into that position and what is college football's most heated rivalry. So that being said, I like Auburn in another close one this year. This time up in Tuscaloosa, right? I'm not gonna call a score just yet. I'm gonna see how the season unfolds. But I like Auburn. I like Auburn this year, Eugene. So I'm taking your bow, officially accepting your bet here on the War Rapport, on tape, on camera, for all of social media to see that Auburn will beat Bama this year no matter what.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will see how it goes. So first matchup is Kentucky. We'll see how Auburn fares in this Kentucky matchup. Again, I'm expecting a lot of my guys, so hopefully they don't embarrass me out here. But But yeah, that's it, man. You got any last words that you want to throw out there to the people?
No, man, it's good for football to be back. I'm glad to see that the institutions have taken the steps that they have needed to take for us to be able to for the student athletes to be able to safely play football this year. I know that COVID has negatively affected a lot of families and a lot of lives this year, and so to be privileged enough to be able to watch college football this year and to get that mental reprieve and watching our teams and argue about football is definitely a blessing. That we've likely taken for granted in the past. So that is not beyond me this year. That we're very lucky to have football this year. War Eagle, man, I'm looking forward to Saturday.
For sure. All right. If you haven't already, make sure that you are staying on top of things. We will be back on Saturday with our live shows again. So we're going to have a preview show before the game. It's going to be pretty early. It's an early kickoff this Saturday. So we'll have a preview before the game. We will be at you at halftime during that game. And then we will come back with our instant reactions after the game is over with. So make sure you know when we're going live. If you're on YouTube, click like and subscribe to the YouTube. Hit that bell so you can get the notifications. Make sure you're following us on social media, The War Rapport on Twitter and Instagram. And once again, we are on TikTok this year at TW Rapport. So you can follow us there for some snippets of conversations. We look forward to seeing you guys in a great season from the Auburn football team. As always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.